Every spring, a tiny wooden bridge appeared beside the river. Nobody in the village knew who built it. Nobody heard hammers in the night. Nobody saw footprints in the grass. And yet, when the first warm wind moved through the willow trees, there it was, waiting quietly above the water. By summer, children crossed it with bare feet. Travelers rested beside it, and old fishermen tied their boats near its posts. But when autumn came, the bridge always vanished. Not broken, not carried away, simply gone, as if the river had taken it back into a dream. For many years, the villagers wondered about the little bridge, but no one ever discovered its secret. Until one soft evening, Talechka decided to stay beside the river and wait. The village was called Belovitsa, a small place tucked between green hills, wildflower meadows, and a slow shining river. In the mornings, the roofs glowed orange beneath the sunrise. Chickens wandered through dusty lanes, and smoke rose gently from cottage chimneys. In the afternoons, children ran through fields of clover. Bees hummed lazily over blue flowers, and the river moved quietly beneath the willow trees. It was not a loud village, but even quiet villages can forget how to rest. People hurried from field to field, from market to mill, from house to house, always carrying baskets, buckets, tools, and thoughts. They spoke kindly, but quickly. They smiled, but briefly, and sometimes they passed the beauty around them without truly seeing it. Talechka noticed this. She noticed the old baker who never watched the sunrise anymore, though his oven faced the eastern sky. She noticed the washerwoman who sang less often, though the river still carried her songs perfectly. She noticed children racing over the grass, but never lying down to watch the clouds drift by. And most of all, she noticed the little wooden bridge. It stood just beyond the village, where the river narrowed between two soft banks of grass. The bridge was simple, made of pale wood, with low curved railings, and small posts worn smooth by many hands. Tiny flowers grew near its steps, yellow, white, and blue. Willow branches hung above it, long and soft, like green curtains moving in the breeze. During the day, the bridge looked ordinary, sweet, peaceful, useful. But at twilight, it changed. When the sky turned peach and lavender, when the river caught the last golden light, when fireflies began to blink between the reeds, the bridge seemed to glow, very softly, not bright enough to frighten anyone, only enough to make the heart grow still. Talechka had crossed the bridge many times, but she had never learned where it came from. One spring morning, when she was gathering wild mint beside the river, she asked the oldest woman in Belovitsa about it. The old woman sat beneath a pear tree, shelling beans into a wooden bowl. "Grandmother," Talechka asked gently. Who built the little bridge? The old woman smiled, but did not answer at once. She looked toward the river, where sunlight flickered over the water. My grandmother asked the same question, she said at last. And her grandmother before her. Talechka listened quietly. Did anyone ever find out? The old woman shook her head. No one who was in a hurry. Then she returned to her beans. As if that explained everything. Talechka thought about those words all day. No one who was in a hurry. That evening, she went back to the river. The air was warm. The fields smelled of grass and honey. And small birds chirped sleepily in the bushes. Talechka sat near the bridge, folding her wings gently behind her, and waited. At first, nothing happened. The river moved. The reeds whispered. A dragonfly rested on a stone. Then footsteps approached. It was the baker. His apron dusted with flour. His shoulders tired from a long day. He crossed the bridge quickly, head lowered, mind full of tomorrow's bread. But halfway across, he stopped. Just stopped. Talechka watched from the grass. The baker placed one hand on the railing and looked down at the river. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then slowly, he smiled. Ah, he whispered. The water sounds just like it did when I was a boy. He stood there until the sky grew deeper, listening, remembering, breathing. Then he walked home more slowly than before. Talechka blinked. The bridge had done nothing. Not really. It had not spoken. It had not shone brightly. It had not opened into another world. And yet, something had changed. The next day, Talechka watched again. A young mother crossed the bridge carrying a basket of laundry. Her little child walked beside her, asking questions, one after another. Why is the river shiny? Why do frogs sing? Why do leaves fall down? Why do clouds move? The mother looked tired. Very tired. She answered softly at first. Then not at all. But when she reached the center of the bridge, she paused. The child stopped too. Together, they looked at the river. A tiny fish jumped, making a silver circle in the water. The child gasped. The mother laughed. A real laugh. Warm and surprised. Then she set down the basket, sat beside her child, and for a few quiet minutes, they watched the river together. The laundry waited. The village waited. The day waited. And nothing terrible happened. Talechka smiled. Again. The bridge had done almost nothing. It simply gave them a place to stop. Days passed. Then weeks. The little bridge became part of village life, as it always did. The shepherd crossed it at dawn. The schoolchildren crossed it in the afternoon. The miller crossed it with sacks of grain. The postman crossed it with letters tied in blue string. Some hurried across without noticing anything. But others paused. Just for a breath. And when they paused, the bridge seemed to become warmer beneath their feet. Talechka began to understand. But not fully. There was still a secret hidden inside the bridge. She could feel it. One golden evening, when summer was beginning to spread across the hills, Talechka decided to ask the river itself. She knelt beside the water and touched the surface with her fingertips. The river was cool, gentle, alive with tiny ripples. "Little river," she whispered, "do you know who builds the bridge?" The river answered in its own way, by moving softly around the stones. "Hush, hush, hush." Talechka listened. But the river did not explain. It only carried reflections. The willow trees, the clouds, the bridge, and Talechka's own thoughtful face. That night, she stayed beside the bridge longer than ever before. The village lights appeared one by one behind her. Warm windows glowing in the dusk. Crickets began singing in the grass. The moon rose pale over the hills, and silver mist gathered low above the water. Talechka wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and waited. Hours passed. The bridge stood quietly in the moonlight. Then, just before midnight, a sound came from the riverbank. Not footsteps, not voices. A soft tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Talechka held her breath. Beneath the willow tree, tiny lights appeared. 1. Then 3. Then many. They were no bigger than fireflies. But they moved with purpose. They drifted around the bridge posts, across the railings, under the planks. Talechka leaned closer. The little lights were not insects. They were tiny glowing hands, small as leaves, carrying threads of moonlight, drops of river water, and pieces of soft morning mist. The bridge shimmered gently. A crack in one plank closed. A loose railing tightened. A worn step grew smooth again. The tiny hands worked silently, carefully, tenderly. Talechka did not speak. She understood that some magic should not be startled. At last, one little light rose from the bridge and floated before her face. Inside the glow, Talechka saw something like an eye. Kind, ancient, and sleepy. "You waited," the little light whispered. Its voice was quieter than grass bending in the wind. Talechka nodded slowly. "I wanted to know the bridge's secret." The tiny light shimmered. "The bridge is made from quiet moments." Talechka looked toward the wooden planks. Quiet moments? The light drifted in a small circle. Yes. A sigh that finally rests. A tear that no one sees. A child's question answered with patience. An old memory remembered gently. A tired heart allowed to be still. All these become wood. All these become railings. All these become a bridge. Talechka listened with wide, gentle eyes. Then who builds it? She asked. The little light glowed softly. Everyone who slows down. The words settled over the river like mist. Talechka looked at the bridge again. Suddenly, it seemed more beautiful than before. Not because it was grand. It was not. Not because it was strong. Though it was. But because it was made of moments people almost lost. The light continued. Each spring, the village remembers how to pause. So the bridge appears. Each summer, it grows stronger with every gentle breath. But when autumn comes, and people begin hurrying again, the bridge grows thin. And when there are not enough quiet moments left, it vanishes. Talechka felt a small sadness in her heart. Can it stay? She whispered. The light dimmed, then brightened again. Only if the village remembers. Then the tiny lights returned to the bridge. And slowly, one by one, they faded into the wood. By morning, everything looked ordinary again. The bridge stood over the river. Simple, pale, and quiet. But Talechka knew its secret now. She did not tell everyone at once. Some secrets must be planted carefully, like seeds. Instead, she began with small things. When the baker hurried past, she asked him, "Did the sunrise look golden today?" He stopped, looked back, and smiled. "I forgot to notice," he said. Then he turned toward the sky and watched for a moment. When the washerwoman rushed to the river, Talechka said, "The water is carrying your song today." The woman laughed softly. "I have not sung in days." Then she began humming. Very quietly at first. Soon, the river carried her song again. When children raced across the bridge, Talechka whispered, "Who can hear the smallest sound?" The children froze, listening. One heard a frog. One heard a bee. One heard the river touching the stones. And one little boy said, "I hear my own breathing." Talechka smiled. That is a very important sound. Little by little, the village changed. Not in a way anyone noticed quickly, but in the way bread smells warmer when eaten slowly. In the way evenings feel longer when no one rushes them. In the way people smile more gently when they have rested. The bridge grew stronger that summer. Its wood turned golden in the sunlight. Tiny flowers bloomed around its posts. And the river beneath it sang more clearly than before. Travelers began speaking of it. "There is a little bridge in Belovitsa," they said. "You cross it tired, and leave with a lighter heart." Some came hoping for miracles. Gold. Wishes. Answers. But the bridge gave none of those. It only offered stillness. And some people found that more magical than gold. One afternoon, a merchant arrived in the village. He wore fine boots, a bright red coat, and carried a watch that he checked every few steps. He had heard rumors of the bridge and wanted to see it for himself. A magical bridge, he said loudly. Excellent. I will buy it. The villagers stared at him. The baker nearly dropped a tray of bread. The washerwoman stopped singing. The children gathered near the willow tree. Talechka stood quietly beside the river. You cannot buy the bridge, she said gently. The merchant laughed. Everything can be bought. He stepped onto the bridge, but did not pause. He stamped his boots on the planks, measured the railing, checked the posts, and muttered numbers under his breath. Then something strange happened. The bridge grew silent. Not peaceful silent, but sad silent. The golden warmth faded from the wood. The flowers near the posts lowered their heads. Even the river seemed to move more slowly. The merchant frowned. This bridge is smaller than I expected, he said. Then he crossed to the other side and left without looking back. For the first time all summer, Talechka felt the bridge tremble beneath the air. That evening, the villagers gathered near the river. They looked worried. What if others come to take it? Asked the baker. What if it disappears early? Whispered one child. The old woman who shelled beans beneath the pear tree came slowly down the path, leaning on a wooden cane. She looked at the bridge, then at the villagers. A bridge made of quiet moments cannot be kept by fear, she said. It can only be kept by using it well. So that night, the village did something simple. No one planned it. No one announced it. No one made a rule. They only stayed. The baker brought warm rolls. The washerwoman brought clean blankets. The children brought wildflowers. The shepherd brought milk. The miller brought a small wooden flute. They sat beside the river, not to protect the bridge with noise, but to remember it with peace. No one hurried. The old told stories. The young listened. The river shone beneath the stars. And Talechka sat near the willow tree, her wings glowing faintly in the moonlight. The bridge warmed again. Softly. Slowly. Like a sleeping child becoming peaceful. By midnight, tiny lights appeared beneath the planks. Only for a moment. Talechka saw them and smiled. Autumn came later that year. The grass turned gold. The apples ripened. The fields filled with soft amber light. Usually, by the first cold wind, the bridge began to fade. Its posts would grow pale, its railings thin, its steps almost transparent. But this year, it remained. Not as bright as summer, not as strong as spring, but still there. The villagers noticed. And because they noticed, they changed even more. They made a small custom. Every evening, before going home, each person crossed the little bridge slowly. Not to ask for anything. Not to perform a ritual. Only to remember one quiet moment from the day. The baker remembered the smell of warm bread. The washerwoman remembered the sound of water. The shepherd remembered clouds moving over the hills. The children remembered laughter. The old woman remembered her mother's hands. And Talechka. Talechka remembered the tiny glowing hands, working beneath the moon. Winter eventually touched the village. Not with harsh storms, but with silver frost. The river grew cold. The reeds turned pale. And mist rose from the water at dawn. One morning, the villagers woke to find the bridge gone. The children ran to the river first. Only grass remained, bent softly where the steps had been. The baker sighed. The washerwoman grew quiet. The old woman leaned on her cane. But Talechka did not feel sad. Because this time, the bridge had not vanished from forgetfulness. It had simply gone to rest. The river moved gently between the banks, carrying pale winter light. And in the place where the bridge had stood, a single small flower bloomed, white as moonlight. The old woman smiled. "It will return," she said. And Talechka knew she was right. Spring came again. As spring always does. Snow melted from the hills. Birds returned to the willow trees. And green shoots appeared beside the river. The villagers waited. But not impatiently. They waited the way one waits for bread to rise, for tea to cool, for a sleepy child to dream. Then, one morning, after a night of soft rain, the little bridge returned. Pale wood, curved railings, tiny flowers around its posts. No hammer had been heard. No builder had been seen. And yet, there it was. The children cheered. The baker laughed. The washerwoman sang. The old woman closed her eyes and whispered, "Welcome back." Talechka crossed the bridge last. Very slowly. Halfway across, she stopped, placed her hand upon the railing, and listened. The river moved beneath her. The willow leaves whispered above her. The village breathed quietly behind her. And from somewhere deep inside the wood, a tiny voice whispered, "Thank you for remembering." Talechka smiled. And the little bridge glowed softly beneath the morning sun. Even now, some say there is a village beside a quiet river, where a little bridge appears every spring, and rests every winter. No one owns it. No one built it alone. It belongs to every tired heart, every gentle breath, every quiet moment that almost disappeared. And if you ever find such a bridge, do not rush across it. Stop in the middle. Place your hand on the railing. Listen to the water. Listen to the leaves. Listen to your own peaceful breathing. And perhaps, if the world is very still, you may hear the bridge whisper softly, "Stay here. Just a moment. The day can wait." And if you would like to hear more gentle stories, you can subscribe to Talechka's Tales. Good night, and sweet dreams.